Hello and welcome to the Same Old Arsenal podcast. A little bit different tonight, a little bit special for you. I am your host, Dan Potts. That's right, Craig has given me the keys to the wagon, which is very nice of him. So I'm going to be doing match previews now, which we're going to call the Potts preview. And we're going to concentrate tonight on Arsenal versus Brighton. And I'll try and get a few days and promote it so that you're aware of when it's going to be. But for each fixture now, when I'm available, I'll be hosting with different guests. Hello to everyone in the chat box. Thanks for coming on and listening. Please get your questions in. I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. With me tonight is a good friend of mine from Guns and Yellow Ribbons podcast. I call him Scunny, because he's from Scunthorpe. He's probably the only Northerner that I know that supports Arsenal. His first name is Mike. And Scunny, how are you, mate?
All right, mate. All right.
You're looking very festive, mate. No, you're welcome.
It's the Christmas tree, mate. You know.
Yeah. What do you know? What I like though is
it's December. It's allowed.
Yeah, mate. I like the fact that you've got your Arsenal shirts in the background as well as the Christmas tree, mate. You've done well.
They're always in the background somewhere. Something's always in the background.
You managed to sort of square that away with the missus, did you?
Yeah. I'll have to take them down after this, but yeah.
That's it, mate. Absolutely. Listen, mate, we're going to get straight into it, buddy. We're going to talk about Arsenal versus Brighton. We're going to talk about Arsenal first. We'll go into a little bit about Brighton in a bit, but I've got to get the first question underway, mate. Freddie Ljungberg is now our manager. First of all, what do you make of his appointment? And secondly, what are you kind of expecting from him tomorrow night against Brighton? What are you hoping to see?
Well, it was to be expected. I think I don't think we was going to go straight in for a manager like other teams have done within 12 hours. I think they're going to take the time and maybe try and appoint the right person this time. We was all hoping that the old manager was going to be the right one, but it turned out he wasn't. But without going in too much into detail with that, he's had a couple more training sessions now, and hopefully he might be able to put some indent on this team compared to what it was at Norwich.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I thought it was a little bit more positive against Norwich, and without going into it too much, I think what I'm expecting tomorrow night is to see a little bit more free-flowing football. I think under Unai Emery it was becoming a little bit boring, wasn't it? And a little bit same old. And just want to see a change and some free-flowing football. And I think that, I've said it before on podcasts about Freddie Ljungberg taking over and the rumours of him taking over early days of the Europa League and Cup games. And for me, it just got to the stage where I thought this was a completely different style of play. It was a lot more free-flowing, very slick. Going forward, we looked impressive. And he kind of gave a lot of sort of faith, had a lot of faith in the youngsters. So, for me, I want to see that again tomorrow night.
Well, yeah, you got to remember he was the under-23 coach last season, so he's going to have a good sense of idea into what youngsters are going to push through. So you never know, he might try and get them in the team as much as he can to get them some game minutes, which they need in fairness, but we'll see.
Absolutely. He doesn't wear a suit though, Paul Scholes says, so he can't be a good manager. What was that comment? What was that comment all about, man?
You know what? I don't know if I'm allowed to swear or not, but he can do one, can't he? But Scholesy, let's face it, he can do one.
Top player. I'll give him that. But he ain't been very good since.
He was a quiet person when he was a player. I think he should stay that now. Keep that quiet momentum going. He shouldn't speak.
Quite agree, mate. Quite agree. Listen, the team news for tomorrow night, as far as I'm aware, Danny Ceballos is still out. I think he's out till sort of middle of the month, if I'm honest with you. So it's going to be a couple more weeks more. Bellerin, Holding, Ozil and Willock have all got late fitness tests from what I hear. If they are fit, does Bellerin and Holding have to start, mate?
I don't know. Holding since he's been back from injury, he hasn't played very well. But then again, you can argue no other defenders are playing well. So should he be dropped because he's not played well once? No, maybe he should be given the chance. And we're better at home against Brighton.
I've got to ask you, Matt, what's going on with our defence at the moment, Scunny? I mean, is it a case that none of them are good enough? Is it a case they've been badly coached? Is it a case they're uncoachable? I mean, I saw Gary Neville make a comment that I agreed with a couple of weeks ago about the fact that these are uncoachable defenders now. And I kind of agree with that because they're in their late 30s, all three of them, really. If you include Mustafi, must be 28 now, something like that, getting towards his 30s. And you look at what, getting rid of Koscielny and bringing Luiz in, nothing's changed. If not, we're worse. I mean, what's going on at the back, mate?
If anyone knows me or ever seen me on guns, then you'll know how I feel about Mustafi. So we won't get into that. But yeah, I sort of agree with his comment. I think there's that age-old saying in there where you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So and I think that's the problem that we've got at the minute. We seem to be buying cheap, older, past. Sort of getting to the point where they're getting past the prime now and in defence, and we just need some. We just need a centre back that's in his, either beginning to get into his prime or in his prime, and I think that's what we need to be looking at.
So, if I was to ask you tomorrow night to pick the back line up for us, who would you go with as the back four or back five?
You'd have to go four at home. I never understood why you'd go back five at home. It has to be a back four for me, and I think obviously Tierney on left hand side. I'd probably give Holding another shot, see how he gets on. This is the hardest bit. If I'm being honest, I'd like to see Chambers next to him, but that's not going to happen. So it's going to either be David Luiz for me because I can't pick Mustafi. Socrates, no, just no. He's been terrible at the minute, and on the right hand side, it's going to have to be Bellerin if he's fit. If he's not fit, it's going to have to be Chambers there. So it all depends on how Bellerin is. I think for me, if he is being assessed before the game, then I think he needs to, he needs to step up as well, and I think he needs to have a good game.
Yeah, listen, I quite agree with you, to be honest. Just going to put in what good evening Charlie has just put in saying that Holding and Socrates was our best centre-back pairing last season. To be honest, I do agree. The only problem is Socrates has not had a good season, has he?
That was last season. We're on a completely new season now, and Socrates he ain't been the best, has he? Let's face it. So whether or not that's down to the old tactics or not, who knows? But he may come good. We all could be wrong about him, and he may come absolutely brilliant this season. We may get the last best season out of him. So you don't know.
Do you think Freddie can improve that back line, or is it too unfair? Is it unfair to say that put that weight on his shoulders?
I think it's unfair to put that weight on his shoulders. He was inherited it, and he wasn't inherited it for his own choice either. He's been given that job to try and sort something out. So no, I think it's a bit unfair to put on his shoulders.
Well, just going on Freddie, we don't know how long he's going to be here, do we? We're not sure if it's going to be a long-term thing, if it's going to be short-term, few weeks, if to the end of the season. We really don't know. But it's a great question from David Morrison that's just come in that I want to put to you, Scunny, and he's actually asked me. But so we'll both give it an answer. David says, Dan, what if we get a big-name manager and then 18 months down the line we are no better off? I can see this happening a mile off. The players are the problem. What do you make of that, Scunny, first of all?
Well, you got to think within, to give credit there, Dave credit there. It is a good question, and you got to look at in 18 months' time. There's going to be 2, maybe 3 transfer windows in that. So someone really, if you're going to get a big name manager, they're going to have to put their imprint on pretty much straight away in defence. They're going to have to come up with something special. It's not just the defence as well. You got to look at the midfield as well. So, but I don't think we've got into that yet. So I'll leave that for now.
Yeah. Listen, I think the main problem is the board. And I've said that from the start. It was when Wenger was here. I said there was a big issue with the board. And I think the manager is obviously something that is going to be an issue going forward because we have to trust the board. But the players are 100% an issue. And some of these players have not just been under Unai Emery. Some of them have also been under Arsene Wenger as well. So I think really what needs to be looked at there is for Freddie, in my opinion, who can I coach? Who can I coach out of this bunch? And I think that you look at Holding and Chambers as a potential pairing. Bellerin and Tierney are still coachable because they're young. Leno's still a good goalkeeper, and I thought he was absolutely sensational at the weekend, I must admit. You've still got Torreira and Ceballos, who are 23 or 24. You've still got young players like Willock coming through. So my question to you, Scunny, is do we kind of look at Freddie to kind of look at trying to implement some of those players tomorrow night so that they can potentially get a run of games under Freddie?
I don't know. I think some part of me saying he needs to try and play it as safe as he possibly can. But there's other parts of me thinking, I'm 50-50 split. So 50% is saying play it safe, try and implement something for yourself. And then the other 50%, do you know what? Screw it, risk it all, go for it, do what you can. But it is that 50-50 split, and I'm just struggling on which way I'd go on that one. I'd love to see him risk it all and just say, go hell for leather, see what he can do. Let's see what the guy's made of. But there's also that part of me, look, we're dropping points pretty badly here. We may need to play it. He may need to play it as safe as he possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
So it is a tough one to ask that, mate, to be fair.
Massively.
Because if we want leaking so many goals and shots against goal, then leaking points everywhere, then it's a case of I would probably say risk it, go for it, do what you can, show us your role.
I'll put what David Morris has just said about our defence, which I quite agree with as well. David, again, good evening, David, and thank you for your comments, mate. All our defenders are the same level. There isn't one that stands out from another, and this is a huge issue. We need to buy smart going forward and get some Premier League experienced defenders in. I really couldn't agree more. I mean, I asked you the other day, actually, Scunny, by text and said, could you name our kind of best defender from our worst defender 1 to 5? And you just said, no, they're all rubbish.
No, there isn't one in there, and I think it's harsh to put Tierney into that lineup because he's only really just started, hasn't he? So it's harsh to put someone like that in. But if you're going to even if you take him out of the equation, then it's really hard to even say which one's the best out of them all. And you're just like, oh no, I'm not doing this.
Absolutely. Going on to the team news, then we've got a question I'm going to bring in a minute. What do you think there'll be any changes from Norwich, the game against Norwich, Scunny?
What, in the defence?
Just in the team, just in the starting 11.
Hopefully, I don't think that 4-3-3 setup with Ozil on the left hand side, I don't think that suited us at all. Even though we were pretty good going forward, I'd say pretty good. I'd say we were more okay going forward. But I wouldn't, some of this you got to pull some out of the bag against this one. It's his first home game as the interim manager. He's got to really pull some out of the bag for me. And changes wise, if anything, I'd try and leave Guendouzi out. If I'm being honest, I think he's getting a bit too erratic. He's losing his head a bit now, and obviously against Norwich, you saw when he got subbed, he was a bit shocked. That he was coming off. So I think that's a problem in itself there. And I think he shouldn't be so. I think he's getting a bit too complacent in his place in the team. So, and I think maybe he should be benched and left out and see how we get on with someone else. I hate to say it, but I think the only person that can really replace him is either going to be Torreira or Xhaka. And I'm not a Xhaka fan, so
no, absolutely. Good evening, Craig Scott. Thank you for watching, mate. Do you boys think we'll see any major changes in the starting 11, which we've kind of touched on? But more importantly, will Pepe and Martinelli start? What do you think, Scunny?
Well, there was some reports about Pepe apparently having a bad training session. Apparently his spatty's done me out somewhere along the line. They're just reports, so it's just all rumours, really. But we don't know. But we need to get something out of Pepe. We've spent 72 million on the guy. I know it's spaced out over the next 5-6 years or so, but we need to start getting something out of him, and he needs to start stepping up and start performing.
For me, it's strange
with a new interim manager. Sorry,
that's all right, mate. I totally agree with you, mate. And I think with this Pepe thing, he needs confidence, and I just hope that Freddie can actually get it into him. But the Martinelli one for me is an interesting one from Craig there, because I don't see what more he can do now to start getting more minutes. We've seen Saka come on ahead of him. We've seen other players, even like Reece Nelson under Unai Emery, given a chance. And every time I see this lad, he just gives 110%. And I think that goes a long way. Even if you look at players over the years, some particularly for Arsenal, that weren't particularly the best players, but they always give 110%. This guy looks like a good player as well. He really does. So for me, I'd like to see Martinelli start more. What do you make of that?
Martinelli, yeah, definitely. He's chomping at the bit. He's trying his hardest to push himself into that first 11. He's doing everything he possibly can, and I think he's going the right way about it. He's got the right attitude. He sometimes is a bit erratic. I say not erratic. He's a bit, when he goes for his tackling, he's a bit dodgy, I think, but that's a forwards tackle. So you can't really. I think all forwards do them type of tackles. So, but
Yeah.
other than that, he's scoring goals. He must be doing something really good in training to be getting to this point now. He's pushing people well out of their way. He's coming. He's just gone, right, this is me. I'm coming here and I'm doing everything and I'm going to walk through people to get to where I am. And he is doing that. So, yeah, he should really get a start. I think either he gets a start or he should come off the bench a lot earlier than the 85th minute.
Someone else agreeing with that, and a little bit of appreciation for you, Mike. Hi, guys. I'm pretty new to the podcast. This is Nick Cook. It's nice to see a fellow Scunny lad on the show.
There's another one.
There's another one, mate. You're not alone. Why? And he
not.
says as well, why does Saka seem to be ahead of Martinelli under both Emery and Ljungberg, which we've touched on as well? Listen, I think that, it does get to the stage of Martinelli where I think if there is going to be a manager to give him a chance, it probably will be Freddie because of his link with giving you for chance. So let's hope that we're right on that. Mate, we're going to move on to what we think the team...
Just want to say, sorry, Dan, you got to understand as well. You see, Martinelli only come in at the start of this season. Saka was in the under-23s with Freddie, so Freddie knows him probably inside and out by now. So that's probably why he got that, given that chance maybe a bit quicker than what Martinelli will get. But I think Martinelli's strong enough. I think he's got the right personality. I think he could push that Saka out the way. Yeah,
mate, absolutely. Listen, I totally agree with that, and that's a great point about Saka being one of maybe Freddie's favourites as such. Mate, team selection then. I'm going to ask you to pick your team for tomorrow night, mate. Who would you go with your 1 to 11 tomorrow night? Considering if the players are fit or unfit, so realistically, what it could be?
Realistically, well, what I think is going to go down is obviously Leno's going to be obviously in goal. We're going to have, hoping it's going to be Tierney on the left. Centre backs, like I said earlier, I'm really struggling with that. It's got Holding if he's fit. If it's not fit, it's going to be a pairing of. It's either going to be Socrates or Mustafi, obviously, but I think it's probably going to be Mustafi over Socrates on this one. And then there's also David Luiz, and then you've got, if Bellerin isn't fit, it's going to be Chambers. I'm just trying to think what sort of thing he'll play. I don't know if he'll play a 4-2-3-1 or maybe a 4-3-3 again. If he's going to go for 4-3-3, I think this is where we're going to struggle with the midfielders because if Willock, again, if he's assessed fit, he might get a shout with him being, another youngster. I think Willock maybe get a shout in a 4-3-3. You're going to have, I think you'll have Xhaka on there, and I think it's either going to be a toss-up of Touré and Guendouzi. Yeah, I just don't think you can play both. One of it, I think Touré is probably should get a start, and let's see what this kid's made of. Let's see if he stops whinging, and stops crying to his agent about wanting to leave, go back to Italy. Let's see what the kid's made of. Put him in there, see what he's got, and then up front, I think it's just going to be the same again. I think it's going to be Özil, Aubameyang, and Lacazette. If it's going to be a 4-3-3, but that's what I feel it's going to be.
I'm going to agree with you, and I actually believe, although I didn't think he had a very good game against Norwich, I actually think this is the sort of game that Mesut Ozil will probably shine because it's at home and it's against opposition that aren't going to kick us up in the air. So I'm not going to disagree with most of what you said there, mate. To be fair, I think that Ozil and Laka and Nobel will probably play, and I think you'll see Martinelli, Saka, and Pepe on the bench again. I think Granit Xhaka will probably play, and I've got to admit I don't like him, but I didn't think he was our worst midfielder at the weekend. I really didn't.
No, I think he made one mistake, didn't he, against Norwich, and that's probably about it. He didn't really do too much wrong, but he didn't really do too much good either, to be honest. So he was just sort of bang average, wasn't he?
Yeah, I don't think there was anyone who played amazingly well, to be fair. No. So I think Xhaka, I think Torreira might get a start as it goes. It might be right, might have Guendouzi out and maybe Willock in instead of him. But I don't think we're going to see much change at the back, unfortunately. I really don't. I think that we are probably going to see maybe Socrates come in for David Luiz instead of Mustafi. But I don't think it'll be much change. Surely Tierney has to play ahead of Kolasinac, though. Kolasinac has had some bad games. He wasn't horrendous at the weekend. But for me, everyone knows I'm not a fan of him. And I'd much rather see Kieran Tierney play. Yeah. And likewise, if Bellerin's fit, I think he's got to play because Chambers, I mean, he was poor, wasn't he, at the weekend? Did you think?
He was poor at the weekend, and I think Bellerin, before he got injured, he was playing amazing. He was doing everything right. And since he's got back, I don't know if he's come back too early from injury or what. He hasn't really done anything right. So he needs to step up. And I think the only way you're going to find that out is in a home game. And if he doesn't step up in a home game against Brighton, then there's no point, is there? You might as well put Chambers there.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Moving on to our opponents tomorrow night, then. I'm going to talk to you first of all and ask you what you think about their manager, Graham Potter, because Arsenal fans knew a little bit about Graham Potter the last couple of seasons when we went over to Ostersunds and welcomed them to the Emirates on a freezing cold time of the year. He did brilliantly over. Yeah, absolutely. He did brilliantly over there and I thought, deserved a shot in English football. I think he's taken the ball by horns. I think he's been absolutely superb, and I've quite liked what I've seen of him so far. What do you make of this guy, Scunny?
He's done all right so far. I think he's struggling a bit at the moment. I think, to be fair, with Brighton, they've only won a couple of games, haven't they? So, but then again, if it's new manager, new season, so you've got to take it as it comes. But he's not in the relegation zone yet. We're nowhere near towards the end of the league yet, so things might turn around. You never know.
Absolutely. I must admit, I think he's done a great job, to be honest. And I think with the actual team that he's got to work with there, I tipped him to go down. I did. I thought they'd be one of the ones that go down. And like you say, there's a long way to go. But at the moment, there's certainly teams below them that are looking more likely to go down than Brighton. And I think Graham Potter's got a massive amount of credit to take for that. I really do. Yeah. For me, the one thing that I know straight away about Brighton is their centre-back pairing. Now, we've just been talking about how bad our defenders are. They have a centre-back pairing in Duffy, Shane Duffy and Lewis Dunk. And for me, they're like old-school defenders. It's a little bit like watching a kind of, I don't want to call them a Tony Adams and a Steve Bold, but the partnership's there, certainly, isn't it?
Yeah, they've got a good partnership, them two, and they do work really well. I think, like you say, I think we mentioned Dunk before we started this podcast. He is an old school English defender, so that's how it works. That's how it looks to me. So, yeah, he is a good player, and I think maybe a different team you might see him in the England squad.
Yeah, well, listen, I've been a massive fan of Lewis Dunk, and I asked you if you could pick one Brighton player to put into the Arsenal player. We both agreed it probably would be Lewis Dunk at the moment.
Yeah, because our defenders are terrible.
But do you rate him as a defender, though, was what I mean?
I rate him as a defender. Like I say, he's done well at Brighton. He hasn't really put much of a foot wrong. He can only do what the team does, and unfortunately, sometimes you get beat all the time in the Premier League. Anyone can win any game in the Premier League. That's what makes it so beautiful. Having a team and watching the Premier League itself, because anyone can actually beat anyone on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to bring a comment in here. We've got a donation here for the podcast. Thank you very much, Brighton Thomas. Transition doesn't suit Arsenal players. We have old school players and we play from the back. I think we're just commenting there about Lewis Dunk and Shane Duffy as a partnership. They strike me as an old school centre-back pairing. And I think that it would be nice for Arsenal to go back to those days, because George Graham, for me, it was the 1-0 to the Arsenal, the 2-1, wasn't it? But when you actually look at it, you think, would you take that? Would you take that back now? Do you know what I
mean? Yeah. Well, he was a bit before my time, to be fair. So
fair one.
I started off in the Wenger years, early Wenger years when I started watching Arsenal. So I've only really known Wenger and what we've had recently. So, we've been watching a beautiful Arsenal.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. I think with the George Graham style, everyone was saying that they didn't want Mourinho, they didn't want Simeone, Ancelotti, because there'll be a kind of boring 1-0 to the Arsenal. I would take 1-0 to the Arsenal at the moment, because the way things are going, it's been a while since we've taken 3 points. It really has.
Sometimes it can win you a league.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So, for me, Brighton have always done well to score against us. I was looking back at previous results, actually. Believe it or not, we've only played Brighton since they've come up in the Premier League a few times. We lost at their place. Last season, we drew at their place 1-1 on Boxing Day. And we got to the stage last season where Granit Xhaka gave away a penalty and ultimately lost us the top 4 place. So we haven't had amazing results against Brighton. We did beat them at the Emirates when they first came under Chris Hughton, and we beat them 2-0. But they've not been a side that we've blown away. And really, the way that Arsenal have been playing over the last couple of years, previous years, you'd like to think we could win this sort of game 3 or 4-0. I think Brighton can cause us some problems. And 2 players that I want to mention now for Brighton, that were actually 3 players. One of them used to play for Huddersfield, Aaron Moy. I think he can cause some issues when he's on the ball. I think he's a very intelligent player, one that we'll have to definitely watch out for. And of course, I don't know how fit they both are up front, but I'm a big fan of Glenn Murray and always have been. I think he's an old school centre forward who can cause our defence problems. And also Neil Maupay is another player who I think can cause some issues. So is there anyone that worries you there, Scunny, in all seriousness? I know they're not Lionel Messi's and Cristiano Ronaldo's, but would it be fair to say that those three players can cause us some problems?
I think they could, yeah. I think the problem is for us is obviously the gap that we have between the midfield and defence, and obviously when you've got midfielders like the ones you've just mentioned there, Maupay and sorry, excuse me, I can't remember his name. Completely lost it.
Glenn Murray. Yeah.
When you got players like that, they can take advantage of these situations. So it's going to be a tough one to. It's going to be a tough game, I think. To be honest, it's not going to be an easy one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so as well, and I think they can cause us some problems, Brighton. I really do. I think when it gets to the stage of an Arsenal at home fixture, a lot of people would say they were confident. The way we're playing, I really don't know. Anything can happen, mate. The way things are going at the moment. So, prediction wise, Scunny, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow night? What have you gone for the score wise?
Well, excuse me, I have a prediction league that I'm on, and I've gone for 2-1 Arsenal win. I think I'm trying to look positive. I'm trying to be positive, as the saying goes. Just for the simple fact is, I think Freddie's he's had that little bit more time now instead of just one training session. He's had a bit more time. He's probably implementing what he wants to do on the pitch. So I think we probably sneak it. I don't think it's going to be an easy one, but I think we'll sneak it.
Well, listen, I'm going to totally agree with you, but with a different scoreline. I think we will nick it, but I've not got confidence that we'll only concede one goal. So I've gone for a 3-2 Arsenal win. I just think it would be nice to see us score. Do you know we've only scored 3 Premier League goals once this season, and that was against Aston Villa when we were 2-1 down, or was it 1-0 down and 2-1 down? I think it was, and we come back to 3-2 with 10 men. That's the only time in the Premier League we've scored 3 goals. I mean, that's just unbelievable, really, isn't it, for Arsenal? Over the years, So I've gone for a 3-2 win. I think we will just nick it. I'm going to remain positive because the probability, mate, of us getting a win soon must be high now. The math says that we must be getting a result. The last time we won was against Bournemouth at home, which was in late September, I think. It's nearly Christmas. You know what I mean? So surely it proves that there's a win on the cards. So I'm really hoping that we can nick that.
Yeah, this is it. And we normally have a really bad festive period, don't we, at Arsenal? It's always usually between December and January. We sort of slope down a bit and we see some bad results creeping in and we seem to pull out of it towards after there. But, them bad spells have come already. So hopefully, we might turn it around for the Christmas period. Yeah,
absolutely. Guys in the chat box, please get your questions in for the last couple of minutes. I'll try and answer as many as I can. Anything in relation to the games tomorrow, try and keep it current and suitable, please. That would be great. And I'll answer as much as I can, both me and Scunny. But Scunny, I just want to touch on Arsenal again just quickly before, because this has been something that's been bugging me now for a few weeks, and it's Lacazette and Aubameyang together. How does a manager, if you were Arsenal manager, how do we get them two working together? Because it seems to me at the moment that away from home, one of them needs to be dropped, which I believe should be Lacazette, because Aubameyang is our goal machine. At home, can we get them working together?
Hopefully. I think there's possibilities out there to get them working together. We're just finding the right system for them to work together. And I think that's the issue that we're finding them in. We haven't really seen a system so far that will help, work together to get the best out of both of them. But if we had that system, I think would be them two forwards in itself are just unstoppable. Because Lacazette has got his own stuff, hasn't he? With his, he can dig in, he can hold a ball, he can turn, and Aubameyang's obviously got his pace. So, and they both can score goals, but we just got to find that right system to play them both. I think the problem that we're finding is we haven't got the wingers to help them both.
Yeah, and I think at the moment it's trying to find that balance. Do we go 2 up top, 1 up top? Do we have wingers? Do we play one behind like he's been doing lately with Ozil behind? And I think that we've got the players there. It's just finding a formation and a system that works. And let's hope that Freddie can do that tomorrow night, because I think that Freddie does understand these players. Freddie is rumours that they did have disagreements with Unai Emery. And it got to a stage where I believe he was trying to kind of work what he could behind the scenes, but obviously he wasn't the manager at the time. So it'd be interesting to see now what happens with Freddie Ljungberg now that Unai Emery has gone. Just for the pure fact that let's hope that we can see a different style. And I think what I'm looking for is a different style of play, something that's more exciting. We did move the ball quicker at the weekend. We did look more positive going forward. We have still got frailties at the back, and I don't think Freddie's gonna even, it's not going to happen overnight anyway, but I don't think that Freddie's going to do that in the next couple of weeks, unfortunately. But it would just be nice to kind of go back to we'll score one more than you, because at the moment we haven't really been scoring goals,
No, that's the issue, and that's what we're finding. We've got nothing to create to go with Lacazette and Aubameyang, so we haven't got the creative prowess. Ozil, as much as he is, apparently, he is meant to be one of the best assisters in the game. We just haven't seen it yet, and I think sometimes you just think that's what I mean. These players need to start stepping up and start playing to the strengths, I think, as well. And I think we need to find a system that plays to the strengths.
Well, listen, Trev has put a great comment on here, which I've got to bring up. And he says that Lacazette, that's not lava, by the way. I think he's supposed to be Lacazette. I think it's supposed to be Lacazette. And this will be the last one before we wrap up. But Lacazette and Aubameyang aren't the problem. It's the supply to them that's no good. I think it's a great point there, because I actually look and think to myself, is that the issue here, the midfield? Because we've not really touched on it so far. We talked about the defence and how poor that's been, and we've talked obviously about the strikers. But is there a lack of service, do you think, Scunny, that's having an effect on both our defence and our centre forwards?
Oh, of course there is, and there's a lack of service, and there's also a lack of a defensive mid as well. And I think that's the issue. We've got that massive gap between midfield and defence, and we've got no creativity going forward. And of course, it is a massive issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last one from Alex McCarthy. I'm going to have to get you to answer this, Scunny, because it's got one of your favourite players in it, mate. Do you think that Freddie Ljungberg is giving Granit Xhaka, Saad Kolasinac and Shkodran Mustafi game time as a last warning to finally prove themselves? What do you make of that?
I think Mustafi has had plenty of time.
You're not a fan, are you, mate? People might not know, but you're not a fan.
He gets down more than James Brown, And that guy loves to get down. So it's a case of, I think Mustafi's had his chance. I'll give him some credit. He's played well in the Cup games and Europa League Cup games. And I think that's where his limit is. I just don't think the Premier League's his limit.
Absolutely. Listen, I think as well, those three players have had enough chances now. Kolasinac is into his third season, Granit Xhaka's into his fourth, and Mustafi's into his fourth. And along with a couple of others, I think they're the ones that should be shown the door come January. There's obviously players that we need to bring in, absolutely, 100%. But for me, they're the sort of players that we should be looking to get out in January now. So, let's see what happens over the coming weeks. Scunny, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, to talk to you. I'm glad that we've kind of ended on a more of a positive note, and we both think Arsenal are going to win. When was the last time we'd said that, mate? That was a while ago, wasn't
it? It was a few games ago, yeah.
It really was, wasn't it, mate? But thank you for joining me, mate. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. I will be doing this again at the weekend. We're going to have West Ham next Monday. So on Sunday morning, I'll be doing another podcast here for a match preview for Arsenal versus West Ham. So please come and join us again. Thank you to everyone in the chat box. Thank you for all your questions. I hope I got through as many as I could and answered as many. 117 of you watching live, which is absolutely superb. So thank you all so much. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Up the Arsenal. And let's hope we get 3 points. Scunny, just lastly, word from you. How will people follow you on social media, mate?
Well, my Twitter handle's there. So I don't put much on, but what I do put on sometimes is quite relevant. Sometimes you might not agree with, sometimes you might. It's up to you. But yeah, thank you for having me, mate, and thank you to everyone in the chat. So it's been great. Thank you very much.
Top man. Thank you, Scunny. Come and follow Scunny Mike, please, at Mike Scunny on Twitter. And you can see him on Guns and Yellow Ribbons podcast quite regularly as well. Thank you all very much, and good night, and we will see you next time, guys. Up the Arsenal.